Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. Very glad to have you with us today. My name is Russell Herbert. Today we'll be taking a look at how to design a custom anti-fatigue mat within 5 minutes. So appreciate your time and glad to have you with us today. This is an exciting time for us because this is our 1-year anniversary of our new drawing tool, AcroSketch. So we'll be taking a look at that along with some of the new features as well. I've been with Acromat about 15 years. I'm excited to have you on the call today as we celebrate the 1-year anniversary of this breakthrough. So nice tidy presentation today, just about 20 minutes or so with some Q&A. I'm going to share a bit with you about why we developed AcroSketch, walk through how you can use the tool, and then design a custom mat with you guys as well so you can see how it works right in action. And then I'm going to welcome our guest, Patrick Shoemaker from Andersen Windows and Doors, and he's going to share his experience with AcroSketch and the role that custom mats has been playing in improving health and safety and productivity at his facility. So Patrick has been a manufacturing engineer with Andersen coming up 2 years, but he's been in manufacturing for about 6 years. He's done some really incredible work to elevate safety there at his facility in Bayport, Minnesota. After we chat with Patrick, we'll host a joint Q&A to close the session. So if you have questions that come up during the webinar, please feel free to submit those in the Q&A box, and we'll address those once we get to that section at the end. And as a reminder, everyone on the call today is eligible to choose a free gift, either the $100 Acromat gift card or a $15 Amazon gift card, and there'll be a form sent out at the end for you to choose that. And then we'll also cover off as well how to enter to win up to $2,500 custom mat. So that's an exciting way to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of AcroSketch. And so I'll share some more details on how that drawing will work once we get to the end. So what is AcroSketch? Why did we create the tool? And I guess more importantly, what problems does it solve? So I just want to share with you a little bit about kind of what the background is, the backstory of AcroSketch and where it came from. I've been in this industry for a long time, and as we got started, we sold a lot of standard mats, and there was 1 or 2 clients that always had me come out and take measurements. I'd travel around with my tape measure in my tool bag, and we tried a few different things. We tried lasers, we tried a few other measuring options as well. And as one grew into 2 and 3 and 4, and we had more and more people that were having me come out and make these custom mats for them, I'd come along and sketch it up and go home and try and figure out how to draw it, and then try and figure out how to quote it. And it was getting to the point where that was keeping me busy enough just out there doing the measurements myself. And I remember after one of the appointments maybe 6 years ago, I realized as I left that what this industry wanted, what it really was hungry for, was a way for the clients to be able to do this themselves just as efficiently, just as effectively as what it was after I had been out and made a visit myself. So with that, I set myself to figure out a way that we could develop a tool that could go into the hands of anybody that wanted to create a custom mat, that they could create consistent results as what we were doing before, and it was going to be right in their hands. So any shape, size, angles, cutouts, features, you name it, I wanted that to be in the tool. I wanted it to give full control, immediate results, and transparency to those that were using it. So the end goal was that there was going to be a product, a tool out there that whether you did it, we did it, anybody did it, it was going to create the same results over and over again. And that was why AcroSketch was born. We tried a few different options as we went along the way. Some of you may remember the Magic Plan app we trialed for a while, and it told us that this was certainly something that the industry was wanting and hungry for. And that was when we went ahead and did a complete ground up development of AcroSketch ourselves. So it's really, really unique. And if you haven't seen it before, today will give you a good insight into how it works. So what we're going to do today, As you see on the screen here, this is a really rough basic sketch, and this is usually where we start. So if you've ever had me come out and do measurements, or if you haven't seen me before, this is kind of what my sketches look like. Nothing very pretty. I'm not an artist by any means, but this is where we start. It's just a rough sketch. And what I'm going to do today is show you how this mat was then built with AcroSketch, and then what it looks like after it was completed. So here on my screen, you should see we have the AcroSketch on one side, and then we have the sketch here over on the right-hand side. So I'm going to just show you kind of the steps we take to actually turn this into something that then can go to production and be built. You click the configure button on the AcroSketch page. Once you're in here, you'll launch the custom option, and you're presented with this drawing screen here. I'm going to run through these tools once I get to the end, but first of all, I'm going to go ahead and create the shape and get that all figured out. So you'll notice this one has a couple of things I wanted to point out. The double line here is what I use to represent the beveled edges with the yellow border. Some of them are just square cut, you'll see here. We also have all the dimensions all the way around, so that makes it easy as I'm putting it in here. We also have an angle here, which I'll show you how to create as well. So we just kind of pick a point to start from. And in this case, I'm going to start from this corner here and work my way around the mat this direction. The important thing here, as we draw this up, you'll see the dimensions start populating on the screen. And I'm not going to get the dimensions perfect the first pass. I'm going to create the shape. That's mostly what I'm interested in to start with. And then I'll show you how to adjust the dimensions to get those accurate once the shape is created. So from your screen, recommend starting somewhere in the middle so you have a bit of room either direction. You're not too close to the edge. You just pick a point and drop a point there and start pulling away, and you'll notice that the dimensions start showing on the screen as well. So as we work our way around, we're going to just create this shape. There's a cutout there. We have another one somewhere down here. So I'm getting them as close as I can without being too precise on the dimensions at this point, creating the cutouts as I need. And here's where we're going to make an angle. And then we're going to finish that back to the original point. So now I have the shape created on the screen. Obviously, the dimensions need to be fine-tuned, so I'll show you that. Next thing I want to do is actually zoom in so I can see this a little closer. There is a scale bar up here as well that you can use to zoom. My shortcut is you press the control button and use the scroll wheel on your mouse, and that gives you a little bit more control as you're zooming this tool in. So now you see the dimensions all the way around, and I'm going to start again on this left-hand side and just get these dimensions exact to my sketch. So start up here. We're going to pull this down to 70 inches. We're going to pull this one across to 34 inches. I'll zoom in a little more so I have a bit more control over this cutout. We want this just to be 4 inches on the width, so that's getting pretty tight, but don't worry if the dimensions stack up on top of each other, you can still see that okay. If I pull that back out, I'll show you. Maybe pull the length in first, so 6 inches here, 6 inches on this side. And you can zoom in as much as you need as well to get this precise. So it's 1 inch increments is what the tool will allow for. So anything in 1 inch increments is able to be dropped into here. Now we need to go to 82 on the top here. 6 again on the cutout. 4 again. So you can see how we're just taking that original shape and just fine tuning the dimensions. The shape stays the same, but now we're just getting it really precise to match our sketch. 32 on this dimension. Right here, that needs to be 86. So we work our way around. The next one needs to be 60, so we'll probably want to pull that one in a bit further. Next one's 47. We want 6 inches on this one, and then pull this back into 6 as well. And make the cutout to be another 4 inches. And we want 37 on the bottom. We're going to pull this one out to 96. So then all that's left is the angle, which I'm going to zoom back out a little bit to show you how that looks at the moment. So you see it's not a very clean angle here. So to create that nice and clean, you can click on one of the lines. You'll notice that there's a point A and a point B on this line. So to create this angle, what we'll want to do is we'll want to lock point B using the tool up here. And that's just going to prevent it from moving whilst we adjust the overall length of this line. And then we're going to adjust the overall length using this tool here down to 84. And then we'll do the same thing on this line. In this case, we want to lock point A so that B can move. And we're going to make this up to 69. And so then that creates the angle just how we want that to be filled in. So I'm going to zoom back out so you can see the whole shape now. So there we go. You've got the shape. As you can see, it's the same as the sketch, just now it's actually to scale and in proportion. So then I'm going to just run through what the other tools are here on the top. The settings tool gives you the options to do the grid, snap to grid, also the overall size of the drawing screen, as well as the grid size. The plus is to create, and if you would like to create a standard preset shape, we have 4 options there. So a U shape or an L or a T shape. If you click that, you don't actually have to draw the shape. It will draw it for you, and all you do is add the dimensions. And then the new one is just the freeform text like we just used. This option here is a cutout. So if you have a place in the middle of the mat that you need to actually make a cutout, maybe for a pillar or a column or a workstation, that's the tool to use for that. This is the select tool, which is what you use to adjust the dimensions. The eraser is if you need to remove a line from the drawing or remove a cutout or something like that. And then the next one is the bevel tool. So that's the one we're going to use next. As I mentioned, these lines represent the yellow edges. So if I click this one time, it will turn yellow, and I can just click on the edges that I want to have the yellow border, and that will be applied as well. So in this particular case, those are the edges I'd like to be yellow. If you click it one more time, it turns black. So you can just have a black beveled edge instead of a yellow beveled edge if you prefer. The screenshot tool allows you to download an image of this mat along with all the dimensions. The tape measure tool allows you to measure from point to point on the mat and get a dimension from one end to the other in case you need to double check any other measurements that are not shown on here. The next one is the unbonded seam tool, and that would be if you need the mat to be delivered in 2 sections for some reason, maybe to go around a column or a workstation, you need it in 2 sections. The seam tool will put a cut in the mat, so it's delivered in 2 pieces. And then lastly, you have the cable cover tool, which allows you to add a flush or a double height cable cover channel right into the mat as well. Any questions on any of those, feel free to reach out. I'm not going to get into too much of the details of all those today, but you know they're there and can help you with those as they become a need. Now we have the mat ready to go. We're going to scroll down. Here's all the options below. You can choose the mat type. In this case, we're going to choose 101. And we want the black color. Because we selected the yellow border in the image above, it already knows that and it's already pre-selected below. The textured surface, we don't need the drainage holes in this one. And then we do want to add the grip coat, the non-slip backing on this particular layout. And you'll notice here, this one is called OMALS. So we'll just put that in the area name. And that can be anything that makes sense to you, whatever your particular work area is called for this mat. And then lastly, acknowledge that you have the dimensions correct. Obviously, double check against your drawing that everything is right. And you'll see there's an instant quote created here for this particular mat. And then once you're ready, go ahead and click the print button in the top here. And that's going to allow you to either save it as a PDF or go ahead and actually print a copy of that. And you'll notice it's got all of your options that you chose, as well as the image and all the dimensions that we included as well. So that way you can double check everything. And then this is what you would submit to us once you're ready for that free mat drawing. Just submit a copy of this page via email, and that's all you have to do there. And then once you've got that done, go ahead and hit submit and close. That will add this layout to your shopping cart in case you needed to come back and make any changes later on to any of the dimensions or any of the other options in the configuration. So with that, I'm going to stop my share again and jump back to the presentation so we can keep moving with that. So as you can see, this is what the final mat looked like. That one we just drew, that was actually a mat that we made just a couple of months ago. And now you can see what that looks like in place. You can see the, where we added the yellow border, you can see the little cutouts we made to go around the feet. You can see the angle on the front and so on. So give you an idea of what it looks like to go from that concept on a rough sketch through to the completion of a custom mat laid out. So whatever shape, size, regardless of how many mats, we do guarantee a 10-day lead time. So we've got some pretty crazy shapes that really do put any shape and size promise to the test. But we do feel that the lead time is critical because, especially in safety, it's important that you get the mats out to your teams quickly, especially if there's a safety issue present with your current mats that you need to resolve. So the 10-day lead time helps with that as well. With that, I am very excited to welcome our guest today from Andersen Windows and Doors, Patrick Shoemaker. He's Andersen Windows has been a partner with Acromat for several years now, and there's a glimpse of a few of the mats that they've designed and installed there. A lot of exciting things have happened over the years for Andersen. Patrick actually drew up the mat on the right that you see there, and I know he's got a story for us about the operator giving the thumbs up. So with that, I'm going to stop the screen share and we'll bring on Patrick. Welcome, Patrick.
Hey, Russell.
Great to see you again. How are you doing?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing well. Thanks. Good to see you. So really appreciate you joining today. I do have a few questions I'd like to share with you, get your feedback on. And if any of the audience have questions for Patrick as well, feel free to put those in the chat and we will get those answered as we go as well. So I guess to start up, Patrick, can you just share a bit about your role with Andersen and what the company does? Get us started with that.
Yeah, so I have been a manufacturing engineer for Andersen going on about 2 years now. I am in charge of the single hung lines in our 100 series department. I know Andersen does a vast majority of other departments like 400 series and casement. More so, I'm centralized in the 100 series department, which is centralized in Fibrex components and customized windows. And we're starting to dabble in stock units for, say, Home Depot and stuff. So.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you. Sounds like a lot to wrap your arms around there. So can you say a bit about what the approach or Andersen's approach was to anti-fatigue mats before you knew custom mats were an option and before you had the option to use AcroSketch?
Yeah, so before I started, a lot of the mats were going bad. So one of the things that our safety team, they really wanted to enhance on was knees and ankles. A lot of the problems we were having was tripping as well too. So I reached out to one of our safety members. He actually showed me your site. And so I started just going through it myself, and I realized that I could create my own mat. So I went out there and I started taking all these measurements. And what was really nice about that was you can fit it around tight corners as well too. So one of the problems we were seeing is when people would round corners, they'd almost trip on that sharp corner of a 90-degree angle. And so what you touched on too, having a 45-degree angle input into that mat was something that was pretty vital. And so especially if they drag their feet, they could clip their edge right on that. So I have been using purely the yellow border. So that way they have that little bit of bevel in case someone is dragging their feet so they don't trip. And obviously there's sharp corners and everything that are around there. So it poses a huge safety risk if you don't have that bevel on there. So I went through and I did, let's see, three lines worth of lines. And then our whole fabrication area, we redid all those mats. And that big mat that you saw was one of the ones in our fabrication area. And he was very happy to get that mat.
Great. Well, we love to hear the feedback from the people actually standing on it, and we're always glad to hear they're happy getting more done, hopefully. So that's great. I guess the next question leading on from that is just how has the ability to create custom mats improved the health and safety and then also the productivity of your team compared to what you had before? Have you noticed some real differences with that?
Not only it's nice to be able to go to work and know that you have a nicer area, especially, it's almost as if you had a bad chair that you sit on all day long, you notice a difference. And so with the operator standing on a brand new mat and it looks nice, it makes them more excited to actually do their job. And one of the things too that I really wanted to implement was if I'm going to do one, I'm going to do the whole line because I want everyone to be able to enjoy these new mats. And we always get the 101, the premium anti-fatigue, and everyone loves them. I hear a lot of feedback saying that, it feels, one guy actually said to me, he said, it feels like I'm floating on a cloud. And so that was one of the things. It's nice to hear that and see people smiling, knowing that I have something nice that I can stand on and do my job. I can stand here for 2, 3, 4 hours a day and my knees don't hurt at the end of the day.
That's really great. I appreciate that feedback. Often we're interacting with folks like you in engineering and safety, but to actually get the real true customer of the product, the guys that are standing on it, is really awesome to hear that feedback. So appreciate that as well. Can you tell us that little story about the guy with the thumbs up?
Yeah, so I think he had been bugging me for about 3 months. He wanted this whole area covered. And so we went back and forth. We were kind of saying, okay, well, that's a very big mat. Like for one, I never asked until later on if you could even do that, Matt. But then I finally I reached out to higher levels and, it requires a certain amount of approval. Well, I got the go ahead. I sent the mat design to you and even you were like, wow, okay, that's a really big mat. And so when we've actually put it out there, he's a second shift guy. I put it out there during first shift. He comes in and he starts dancing on it. He was so happy. And
that's great.
He sits on it every day and he has his lunch and he loves it.
Good. Well, thanks for thanks for doing the hard yards to get that approved from, what you needed to do. And it certainly was a big mat. I think 550 square feet in one piece with a little peninsula off on the side, as you saw in the pictures. But it's what we do every day, so we're more than happy to, even if it's big, we love it. So it's great. Let's see. Next question I had for you. We often do the measurements and designs ourselves. We're often on site helping with those sketches like you saw earlier. But you kind of jumped right into it, I think, before we'd even met together, and got used to AcroSketch yourself to draw up a lot of those custom mats. Can you say something maybe to others that haven't used the tool or maybe hesitant to start using it, as far as trusting the precision of the tool and the quotes that it generates?
Yeah, so when I first started using it, I was obviously a little bit hesitant only because I had never used it before. But reaching out to you was very helpful because I didn't know whether it was going to be extremely accurate or not. But you walked me through it a little bit, and like you said, I kind of just dived right into it. I usually like to take things on before I initially ask for help, but everything that I've received from you has been pretty much spot on. So that's one huge thing that we really value too, is when we reach out to other companies and they come back with quality products. And that's one thing that really keeps us going with Acromat. It's nice to have. It's reliable and dependable. So
Great. Yeah, thank you for that. And I guess just on that point as well, AcroSketch is the tool that we use internally. So if somebody reaches out with a drawing and we're happy to do it, whether we do it, you do it, our customer service folks, another sales rep, whatever it might be, we all get exactly the same result. There's no customizing fees. It's all built into the tool. What you see is the same for everybody. So I think that's great. So is there anything else that we didn't cover today that you maybe what your team is doing or working on that you want to touch on, Patrick?
yeah, so we have a couple more areas that we'll probably be reaching out to you again here soon, but everyone's seeing what I've been doing over on our single hung lines, and they want to incorporate more of that just to kind of get a standard, because there's some areas where you look and where there was one of the pictures you brought up earlier where it had 4 mats in one, and they were just these small little rectangles and they were everywhere. Well, we have a couple areas like that where it's just a hodgepodge of all these mats. And so, we kind of would like to create that standard where if this line has it, then okay, well, this line should have it too then.
That's great. And I think that's an important point you mentioned about standardizing, because that's something we hear a lot from safety leaders, is their push to get that standard to eliminate a lot of crossover and issues with multiple different types being used and things like that. So it's a great point. Good. With that, I'm going to just go ahead and pull up our Q&A questions, Patrick, and then see what we got on the on the screen here. If there's any other questions as well for the audience as we go through these, feel free to add those to the list as well. First question Kale asks is, can you select more than one line at a time when changing the line colors? So it is just one at a time selection on that. As you work your way around with the paint tool, once you click the yellow border tool, it stays on that tool, and it's just as quick as just clicking each line that you want that to be on there. But at this point, we don't have the option to select multiple lines at once. George asks a great question here. How do you draw arches or circles? That's a great question, George. At this point, AcroSketch is not able to do a circle, and that's because of the way that the mats are actually made. With the beveled edge, we're not actually able to create a true arch or circle. It can be done through a series of straight lines made to look into made to form a circle, if that makes sense. So if anyone has a circle or an arch, we can do that. It's just not available through AcroSketch at this point. It's kind of the sort of maybe 2% of mats we ever do have that need for a circle, and we have to kind of draw that internally. So great question, George. And if you have one of those, reach out to me directly and can help with that as well. Tom asks, can these mats be cut around with a round 180-degree edge for around a wash sink? Similar question. There is actually an example. If you look on our gallery page on the website, the ideas gallery, there is a picture of a mat around a wash sink, which is kind of what you're describing. So we certainly can do that, and I can help you line those up directly as well. Dennis asks, after I complete a drawing, how do I go back and modify using the cutting tool? So once the drawing is complete, you can hit edit and edit the configuration. You'll be right back to where you left off, and then you can start using the other tools on the toolbar. And I think, Patrick, you've probably done that a few times and just put them in your cart for later date. Is that right?
Yep.
And then you can just jump right back to the edit button and reload those.
Yeah, and it's easy enough to, it's say if I didn't save it, I can go right back in and easily just create it again.
Okay. Yep. So any questions on that, Dennis, or anything I can help with more in depth, just feel free to reach out on that one too. George asks a great question here as well. Do you quote by square footage and or the complexity of the design? I guess that's one of the things I should have mentioned earlier, but there is no customizing fees. It's all based on the square foot of the material that you get. So if you add a cutout, you're actually reducing the square feet, thus reducing the cost. And you'll see that as you start drawing and moving the lines on the tool, that the cost will change according to the square feet of the design. So whether you have one cutout or 100, it's all based on the same thing, which is the square feet of the mat itself. Mark asks a great question as well. Is an approval drawing sent to review before the mat is made? So the PDF printout that I showed you when we were finished with the design, that is the finished product, and that is available for you right there and then. And you can print that off and double check all the dimensions as you work your way around. And then that same drawing is what goes to production to get made exactly according to those specs. So certainly make sure that you have that, finalized and that you're comfortable with all the dimensions. There is also the acknowledge checkbox as well, which helps with that as well, just to make sure you double check everything before you submit that final layout. I think that gets to the bottom of what I have in the list here for questions, unless there's anything else. Did you have any final thoughts, Patrick, before we finish up? Or
I think Catherine just asked a question. What's the largest mat you can make?
Oh, look at that. Yeah, thank you. Well, that's a great question too. And it really comes down to logistics. The way we make the mats is a process of cutting and bonding sections together. And so there really isn't a limit as far as dimensions go. It comes down to logistics and handling. So sometimes it can be, handling on the site. What is the space they have to work with the mat? But we've made mats that are, a couple 100 feet long, and we've made mats that are 20 feet wide. So and that one that Patrick was talking about was 550 square feet total. So there really isn't a limit on our end. It's more the logistics of the thing and actually getting it installed.